Poland. Officially the Republic of Poland, is a country in Central Europe. It extends from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Sudetes and Carpathian Mountains in the south, and has a temperate transitional climate, while its longest river is the Vistula. Poland is the fifth most populous member state of the European Union, with its 16 voivodeships comprising a total population of over 38 million and covering a combined area of 312,696 square kilometers. It is bordered by Lithuania and Russia to the northeast, Belarus and Ukraine to the east, Slovakia and the Czech Republic to the south, and Germany to the west. The nation's capital and largest metropolis is Warsaw. Other major cities include Krakow, Wrocław, Lodz, Poznan, and Gdansk. Prehistoric human activity on Polish soil dates to the Lower Paleolithic, with continuous settlement since the end of the last glacial period. Culturally diverse throughout late antiquity, in the early medieval period the region became inhabited by the tribal Polans, who gave Poland its name. The process of establishing proper statehood, which began in 966, coincided with the conversion of a pagan ruler of the Polans to Christianity, under the auspices of the Roman Catholic Church. The Kingdom of Poland emerged in 1025, and in 1569 cemented its long-standing association with Lithuania, thus forming the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. At the time, the Commonwealth was one of the great powers of Europe, with a uniquely liberal political system which adopted Europe's first modern constitution in 1791. With the passing of the prosperous Polish Golden Age, the country was partitioned by neighboring states at the end of the 18th century. Poland regained its independence in 1918 as the Second Polish Republic and successfully defended it in the Polish-Soviet War from 1919 to 1921. In September 1939, the invasion of Poland by Germany and the Soviet Union marked the beginning of World War II, which resulted in the Holocaust and millions of Polish casualties. Forced into the Eastern Bloc in the global Cold War, the Polish People's Republic was a founding signatory of the Warsaw Pact. Through the emergence and contributions of the Solidarity movement, the communist government was dissolved and Poland re-established itself as a democratic state in 1989. Poland is a parliamentary republic, with its bicameral legislature comprising the Sejm and the Senate. It is a developed market and a high-income economy. Considered a middle power, Poland has the sixth largest economy in the European Union by GDP and the fifth largest by GDP. It provides a very high standard of living, safety, and economic freedom, as well as free university education and a universal healthcare system. The country has 17 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, 15 of which are cultural. Poland is a founding member state of the United Nations, as well as a member of the World Trade Organization, OECD, NATO, and the European Union including the Schengen area. History. The first Stone Age archaic humans and Homo erectus species settled what was to become Poland approximately 500,000 years ago, though the ensuing hostile climate prevented early humans from founding more permanent encampments. The arrival of Homo sapiens and anatomically modern humans coincided with the climatic discontinuity at the end of the last glacial period, when Poland became habitable. Neolithic excavations indicated broad-ranging development in that era. The earliest evidence of European cheese-making was discovered in Polish Kujawia, and the Bronyssus pot is incised with the earliest known depiction of what may be a wheeled vehicle. The period spanning the Bronze Age and the early Iron Age was marked by an increase in population density, establishment of palisade settlements and the expansion of Lusatian culture. A significant archaeological find from the proto-history of Poland is a fortified settlement at Biskupin, attributed to the Lusatian culture of the Late Bronze Age. Throughout antiquity, many distinct ancient populations inhabited the territory of present-day Poland, notably Celtic, Scythian, Germanic, Sarmatian, Baltic and Slavic tribes. Furthermore, archaeological findings confirmed the presence of Roman legions sent to protect the amber trade. The Polish tribes emerged following the second wave of the migration period around the 6th century AD. They were Slavic and may have included assimilated remnants of peoples that earlier dwelled in the area. Beginning in the early 10th century, the Polans would come to dominate other Lechitic tribes in the region, initially forming a tribal federation and later a centralized monarchical state. Kingdom of Poland. Poland began to form into a recognizable unitary and territorial entity around the middle of the 10th century under the Piast dynasty. In 966, ruler of the Polans Mieszko I accepted Christianity under the auspices of the Roman Church with the baptism of Poland. In 968, a missionary bishopric was established in Poznan. An incipit titled Dagom Iudex first defined Poland's geographical boundaries with its capital in Gniezno and affirmed that its monarchy was under the protection of the Apostolic See. The country's early origins were described by Gallus Anonymous in Gesta Principum Polanorum, the oldest Polish chronicle. An important national event of the period was the martyrdom of Saint Adalbert, who was killed by Prussian pagans in 997 and whose remains were reputedly bought back for their weight in gold by Mieszko's successor, Boleslaw I the Brave. In 1000, at the Congress of Gniezno, Boleslaw obtained the right of investiture from Otto III, Holy Roman Emperor, who assented to the creation of additional bishoprics and an archdioceses in Gniezno. 3 new dioceses were subsequently established in Kraków, Kołobrzeg, and Wrocław. Also, Otto bestowed upon Boleslaw royal regalia and a replica of the Holy Lance, which were later used at his coronation as the first king of Poland in c. 1025, when Boleslaw received permission for his coronation from Pope John XIX. Boleslaw also expanded the realm considerably by seizing parts of German Lusatia, Czech Moravia, Upper Hungary, and southwestern regions of the Kievan Rus. The transition from paganism in Poland was not instantaneous and resulted in the pagan reaction of the 1030s. In 1031, Mieszko II Lambert lost the title of king and fled amidst the violence. The unrest led to the transfer of the capital to Kraków in 1038 by Casimir I the Restorer. In 1076, Boleslaw II reinstituted the office of king, but was banished in 1079 for murdering his opponent, Bishop Stanislaus. In 1138, the country fragmented into 5 principalities when Boleslaw III Rymouth divided his lands among his sons. These comprised Lesser Poland, Greater Poland, Silesia, Masovia, and Sandomierz, with intermittent hold over Pomerania. In 1226, Conrad I of Masovia invited the Teutonic Knights to aid in combating the Baltic Prussians, a decision that later led to centuries of warfare with the Knights. In the first half of the 13th century, Henry I the Bearded and Henry II the Pious aimed to unite the fragmented dukedoms, but the Mongol invasion and the death of Henry II in battle hindered the unification. As a result of the devastation which followed, depopulation and the demand for craft labor spurred a migration of German and Flemish settlers into Poland, which was encouraged by the Polish dukes. In 1264, the Statute of Kalisz introduced unprecedented autonomy for the Polish Jews, who came to Poland fleeing persecution elsewhere in Europe. In 1320, Władysław I the Short became the first king of a reunified Poland since Przemysl II in 1296, and the first to be crowned at Wawel Cathedral in Kraków. Beginning in 1333, the reign of Casimir III the Great was marked by developments in castle infrastructure, army, judiciary, and diplomacy. Under his authority, Poland transformed into a major European power. He instituted Polish rule over Ruthenia in 1340 and imposed quarantine that prevented the spread of Black Death. In 1364, Casimir inaugurated the University of Krakow, one of the oldest institutions of higher learning in Europe. Upon his death in 1370, the Piast dynasty came to an end. He was succeeded by his closest male relative, Louis of Anjou, who ruled Poland, Hungary, and Croatia in a personal union. Louis' younger daughter Jadwiga became Poland's first female monarch in 1384. In 1386, Jadwiga of Poland entered a marriage of convenience with Władysław II Jagiello, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, thus forming the Jagiellonian dynasty and the Polish-Lithuanian Union, which spanned the late Middle Ages and early modern era. The partnership between Poles and Lithuanians brought the vast multi-ethnic Lithuanian territories into Poland's sphere of influence and proved beneficial for its inhabitants, who coexisted in one of the largest European political entities of the time. In the Baltic Sea region, the struggle of Poland and Lithuania with the Teutonic Knights continued and culminated at the Battle of Grunwald in 1410, where a combined Polish-Lithuanian army inflicted a decisive victory against them. In 1466, after the 13 Years' War, King Casimir IV Jagiellon gave royal consent to the Peace of Thorn, which created the future Duchy of Prussia under Polish suzerainty and forced the Prussian rulers to pay tributes. The Jagiellonian dynasty also established dynastic control over the kingdoms of Bohemia and Hungary. In the south, Poland confronted the Ottoman Empire and the Crimean Tatars, and in the east helped Lithuania to combat Russia. Poland was developing as a feudal state, with a predominantly agricultural economy and an increasingly powerful landed nobility that confined the population to private monoreal farmsteads, or folwarks. In 1493, John I Albert sanctioned the creation of a bicameral parliament composed of a lower house, the Sejm, and an upper house, the Senate. The Nihil Novi Act adopted by the Polish General Sejm in 1505, transferred most of the legislative power from the monarch to the parliament, an event which marked the beginning of the period known as Golden Liberty, when the state was ruled by the seemingly free and equal Polish nobles. The 16th century saw Protestant Reformation movements making deep inroads into Polish Christianity, which resulted in the establishment of policies promoting religious tolerance, unique in Europe at that time. This tolerance allowed the country to avoid the religious turmoil and wars of religion that beset Europe. In Poland, non-Trinitarian Christianity became the doctrine of the so-called Polish Brethren, who separated from their Calvinist denomination and became the co-founders of global Unitarianism. The European Renaissance evoked under Sigismund I the Old and Sigismund II Augustus a sense of urgency in the need to promote a cultural awakening. During the Polish Golden Age, the nation's economy and culture flourished. The Italian-born Bona Sforza, daughter of the Duke of Milan and queen consort to Sigismund I, made considerable contributions to architecture, cuisine, language, and court customs at Wawel Castle. Polish, Lithuanian Commonwealth. The Union of Lublin of 1569 established the Polish, Lithuanian Commonwealth, a unified federal state with an elective monarchy, but largely governed by the nobility. The latter coincided with a period of prosperity, the Polish-dominated Union thereafter becoming a leading power and a major cultural entity, exercising political control over parts of Central, Eastern, Southeastern and Northern Europe. The Polish, Lithuanian Commonwealth occupied approximately 1 million square kilometers at its peak and was the largest state in Europe. Simultaneously, Poland imposed Polonization policies in newly acquired territories which were met with resistance from ethnic and religious minorities. In 1573, Henry de Valois of France, the first elected king, approbated the Henricean Articles which obliged future monarchs to respect the rights of nobles. His successor, Stephen Bathory, led a successful campaign in the Livonian War, granting Poland more lands across the eastern shores of the Baltic Sea. State affairs were then headed by Jan Zamoyski, the crown chancellor. In 1592, Sigismund III of Poland succeeded his father, John Vasa, in Sweden. The Polish-Swedish Union endured until 1599, when he was deposed by the Swedes. In 1609, Sigismund invaded Russia, which was engulfed in a civil war, and a year later the Polish winged hussar units under Stanislaw Zalkiewski occupied Moscow for 2 years after defeating the Russians at Klushino. Sigismund also countered the Ottoman Empire in the southeast. At Khotan in 1621, Jan Karol Chodkiewicz achieved a decisive victory against the Turks, which ushered the downfall of Sultan Osman II. Sigismund's long reign in Poland coincided with the Silver Age. The liberal Władysław IV effectively defended Poland's territorial possessions, but after his death the vast Commonwealth began declining from internal disorder and constant warfare. In 1648, the Polish hegemony over Ukraine sparked the Khmelnytsky uprising, followed by the decimating Swedish deluge during the Second Northern War, and Prussia's independence in 1657. In 1683, John III Sobieski re-established military prowess when he halted the advance of an Ottoman army into Europe at the Battle of Vienna. The successive Saxon era, under Augustus II and Augustus III, saw the rise of neighboring countries in the aftermath of the Great Northern War and the War of the Polish Succession. Partitions. The royal election of 1764 resulted in the elevation of Stanislaw II Augustus Poniatowski to the monarchy. His candidacy was extensively funded by his sponsor and former lover, Empress Catherine II of Russia. The new king maneuvered between his desire to implement necessary modernizing reforms, and the necessity to remain at peace with surrounding states. His ideals led to the formation of the 1768 Bar Confederation, a rebellion directed against the Poniatowski and all external influence, which ineptly aimed to preserve Poland's sovereignty and privileges held by the nobility. The failed attempts at government restructuring as well as the domestic turmoil provoked its neighbors to intervene. In 1772, the first partition of the Commonwealth by Prussia, Russia, and Austria took place, an act which the partition Sejm, under considerable duress, eventually ratified as a fait accompli. Disregarding the territorial losses, in 1773 a plan of critical reforms was established, in which the Commission of National Education, the first government education authority in Europe, was inaugurated. Corporal punishment of school children was officially prohibited in 1783. Poniatowski was the head figure of the Enlightenment, encouraged the development of industries, and embraced Republican neoclassicism. For his contributions to the arts and sciences he was awarded a Fellowship of the Royal Society. In 1791, Great Sejm Parliament adopted the May 3 Constitution, the first set of supreme national laws, and introduced a constitutional monarchy. The Targowica Confederation, an organization of nobles and deputies opposing the act, appealed to Catherine and caused the 1792 Polish-Russian War. Fearing the re-emergence of Polish hegemony, Russia and Prussia arranged and in 1793 executed the Second Partition, which left the country deprived of territory and incapable of independent existence. On October 24, 1795, the Commonwealth was partitioned for the third time and ceased to exist as a territorial entity. Stanislaw Augustus, the last king of Poland, abdicated the throne on November 25, 1795. Era of insurrections. The Polish people rose several times against the partitioners and occupying armies. An unsuccessful attempt at defending Poland's sovereignty took place in the 1794 Kosciuszko uprising, where a popular and distinguished General Tadeusz Kosciuszko, who had several years earlier served under George Washington in the American Revolutionary War, led Polish insurgents. Despite the victory at the Battle of Roklawice, his ultimate defeat ended Poland's independent existence for 123 years. In 1806, an insurrection organized by Jan Henryk Dąbrowski liberated Western Poland ahead of Napoleon's advance into Prussia during the War of the Fourth Coalition. In accordance with the 1807 Treaty of Tilsit, Napoleon proclaimed the Duchy of Warsaw, a client state ruled by his ally Frederick Augustus I of Saxony. The Poles actively aided French troops in the Napoleonic Wars, particularly those under Józef Poniatowski, who became Marshal of France shortly before his death at Leipzig in 1813. In the aftermath of Napoleon's exile, the Duchy of Warsaw was abolished at the Congress of Vienna in 1815 and its territory was divided into Russian Congress Kingdom of Poland, the Prussian Grand Duchy of Posen, and Austrian Galicia with the Free City of Krakow. In 1830, non-commissioned officers at Warsaw's Officer Cadet School rebelled in what was the November Uprising. After its collapse, Congress Poland lost its constitutional autonomy, army, and legislative assembly. During the European Spring of Nations, Poles took up arms in the Greater Poland Uprising of 1848 to resist Romanization, but its failure saw duchy status reduced to a mere province, and subsequent integration into the German Empire in 1871. In Russia, the fall of the January Uprising prompted severe political, social, and cultural reprisals, followed by deportations and pogroms of the Polish Jewish population. Towards the end of the 19th century, Congress Poland became heavily industrialized, its primary exports being coal, zinc, iron, and textiles. Second Polish Republic. In the aftermath of World War I, the Allies agreed on the reconstitution of Poland, confirmed through the Treaty of Versailles of June 1919. A total of 2 million Polish troops fought with the armies of the three occupying powers, and over 450,000 died. Following the armistice with Germany in November 1918, Poland regained its independence as the Second Polish Republic. The Second Polish Republic reaffirmed its sovereignty after a series of military conflicts, most notably the Polish-Soviet War, when Poland inflicted a crushing defeat on the Red Army at the Battle of Warsaw. The interwar period heralded a new era of Polish politics. Whilst Polish political activists had faced heavy censorship in the decades up until World War I, a new political tradition was established in the country. Many exiled Polish activists, such as Ignacy Jan Paderewski, who would later become prime minister, returned home. A significant number of them then went on to take key positions in the newly formed political and governmental structures. Tragedy struck in 1922 when Gabriel Narutowicz, inaugural holder of the presidency, was assassinated at the Zakata Gallery in Warsaw by a painter and right-wing nationalist Eligius Niewiadomski. In 1926, the May coup, led by the hero of the Polish independence campaign Marshal Józef Pilsudski, turned rule of the Second Polish Republic over to the nonpartisan Sanakgia movement to prevent radical political organizations on both the left and the right from destabilizing the country. By the late 1930s, due to increased threats posed by political extremism inside the country, the Polish government became increasingly heavy-handed, banning a number of radical organizations, including communist and ultranationalist political parties, which threatened the stability of the country. World War II began with the Nazi German invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, followed by the Soviet invasion of Poland on September 17. On September 28, 1939, Warsaw fell. As agreed in the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, Poland was split into two zones, one occupied by Nazi Germany, the other by the Soviet Union. In 1939 to 1941, the Soviets deported hundreds of thousands of Poles. The Soviet NKVD executed thousands of Polish prisoners of war among other incidents in the Katyn massacre ahead of Operation Barbarossa. German planners had in November 1939 called for the complete destruction of all Poles and their fate as outlined in the genocidal General Plan Ost. Poland made the fourth largest troop contribution in Europe, and its troops served both the Polish government in exile in the West and Soviet leadership in the East. Polish troops played an important role in the Normandy, Italian, North African campaigns and Netherlands and are particularly remembered for the Battle of Britain and Battle of Monte Cassino. Polish intelligence operatives proved extremely valuable to the Allies, providing much of the intelligence from Europe and beyond. Polish code breakers were responsible for cracking the Enigma cipher, and Polish scientists participating in the Manhattan Project were co-creators of the American atomic bomb. In the East, the Soviet-backed Polish First Army distinguished itself in the battles for Warsaw and Berlin. The wartime resistance movement, and the Armia Krajowa, fought against German occupation. It was one of the three largest resistance movements of the entire war, and encompassed a range of clandestine activities, which functioned as an underground state complete with degree-awarding universities and a court system. The resistance was loyal to the exiled government and generally resented the idea of a communist Poland. For this reason, in the summer of 1944 it initiated Operation Tempest, of which the Warsaw Uprising that began on August 1, 1944 is the best-known operation. Nazi German forces under orders from Adolf Hitler set up 6 German extermination camps in occupied Poland, including Treblinka, Majdanek, and Auschwitz. The Germans transported millions of Jews from across occupied Europe to be murdered in those camps. Altogether, 3 million Polish Jews, approximately 90% of Poland's pre-war Jewry, and between 1.8 and 2.8 million ethnic Poles were killed during the German occupation of Poland, including between 50,000 and 100,000 members of the Polish intelligentsia, academics, doctors, lawyers, nobility, and priesthood. During the Warsaw Uprising alone, over 150,000 Polish civilians were killed. Most were murdered by the Germans during the Wala and Okata massacres. Around 150,000 Polish civilians were killed by Soviets between 1939 and 1941 during the Soviet Union's occupation of eastern Poland, and another estimated 100,000 Poles were murdered by the Ukrainian insurgent army between 1943 and 1944 in what became known as the Wolin massacres. Of all the countries in the war, Poland lost the highest percentage of its citizens. Around 6 million perished, more than 1/6 of Poland's pre-war population, half of them Polish Jews. About 90% of deaths were non-military in nature. In 1945, Poland's borders were shifted westwards. Over 2 million Polish inhabitants of Kresy were expelled along the Curzon Line by Stalin. The western border became the Oder-Neisse Line. As a result, Poland's territory was reduced by 20%, or 77,500 square kilometers. The shift forced the migration of millions of other people, most of whom were Poles, Germans, Ukrainians, and Jews. At the insistence of Joseph Stalin, the Yalta Conference sanctioned the formation of a new provisional pro-communist coalition government in Moscow, which ignored the Polish government in exile based in London. This action angered many Poles who considered it a betrayal by the Allies. In 1944, Stalin had made guarantees to Churchill and Roosevelt that he would maintain Poland's sovereignty and allow democratic elections to take place. However, upon achieving victory in 1945, the elections organized by the occupying Soviet authorities were falsified and were used to provide a veneer of legitimacy for Soviet hegemony over Polish affairs. The Soviet Union instituted a new communist government in Poland, analogous to much of the rest of the Eastern Bloc. As elsewhere in Communist Europe, the Soviet influence over Poland was met with armed resistance from the outset, which continued into the 1950s. Despite widespread objections, the new Polish government accepted the Soviet annexation of the pre-war eastern regions of Poland and agreed to the permanent garrisoning of Red Army units on Poland's territory. Military alignment within the Warsaw Pact throughout the Cold War came about as a direct result of this change in Poland's political culture. In the European scene, it came to characterize the full-fledged integration of Poland into the brotherhood of communist nations. The new communist government took control with the adoption of the small constitution on February 19, 1947. The Polish People's Republic was officially proclaimed in 1952. In 1956, after the death of Bolesław Bierut, the regime of Władysław Gomułka became temporarily more liberal, freeing many people from prison and expanding some personal freedoms. Collectivization in the Polish People's Republic failed. A similar situation repeated itself in the 1970s under Edward Gierek, but most of the time persecution of anti-communist opposition groups persisted. Despite this, Poland was at the time considered to be one of the least oppressive states of the Eastern Bloc. Labor turmoil in 1980 led to the formation of the independent trade union Solidarity, which over time became a political force. Despite persecution and imposition of martial law in 1981 by General Wojciech Jaruzelski, it eroded the dominance of the Polish United Workers' Party and by 1989 had triumphed in Poland's first partially free and democratic parliamentary elections since the end of the Second World War. Lech Walesa, a Solidarity candidate, eventually won the presidency in 1990. The Solidarity movement heralded the collapse of communist regimes and parties across Europe. Third Polish Republic. A shock therapy program, initiated by Leszek Balcerowicz in the early 1990s, enabled the country to transform its Soviet-style planned economy into a market economy. As with other post-communist countries, Poland suffered temporary declines in social, economic, and living standards, but it became the first post-communist country to reach its pre-1989 GDP levels as early as 1995, although the unemployment rate increased. Poland became a member of the Visegrad Group in 1991, and joined NATO in 1999. Poles then voted to join the European Union in a referendum in June 2003, with Poland becoming a full member on May 1, 2004, following the consequent enlargement of the organization. Poland joined the Schengen area in 2007, as a result of which, the country's borders with other member states of the European Union were dismantled, allowing for full freedom of movement within most of the European Union. On April 10, 2010, the President of Poland Lech Kaczynski, along with 89 other high-ranking Polish officials, died in a plane crash near Smolensk, Russia. In 2011, the ruling Civic Platform won parliamentary elections. In 2014, the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, was chosen to be President of the European Council, and resigned as Prime Minister. The 2015 and 2019 elections were won by the National Conservative Law and Justice Party led by Jarosław Kaczyński, resulting in increased Euroscepticism and increased friction with the European Union. In December 2017, Mateusz Morawiecki was sworn in as the Prime Minister, succeeding Beata Szydło, in office since 2015. President Andrzej Duda, supported by Law and Justice Party, was re-elected in the 2020 presidential election. As of November 2023, the Russian invasion of Ukraine had led to 17 million Ukrainian refugees crossing the border to Poland. As of November 2023, 0.9 million of those had stayed in Poland. In October 2023, the ruling Law and Justice Party won the largest share of the vote in the election, but lost its majority in parliament. In December 2023, Donald Tusk became the new prime minister, leading a coalition called Civic Coalition made up of Civic Platform, Third Way, and the Left. Law and Justice became the leading opposition party. Government and politics. Poland is a unitary parliamentary republic and a representative democracy, with the president as the head of state. The executive power is exercised further by the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister, who acts as the head of government. The Council's individual members are selected by the Prime Minister, appointed by the President and approved by Parliament. The head of state is elected by popular vote for a 5-year term. The current president is Andrzej Duda and the Prime Minister is Donald Tusk. Poland's Legislative Assembly is a bicameral parliament consisting of a 460-member lower house and a 100-member upper house. The same is elected under proportional representation according to the D-Hond method for vote seat conversion. The Senate is elected under the first-past-the-post electoral system, with one senator being returned from each of the 100 constituencies. The Senate has the right to amend or reject a statute passed by the Sejm, but the Sejm may override the Senate's decision with a majority vote. With the exception of ethnic minority parties, only candidates of political parties receiving at least 5% of the total national vote can enter the Sejm. Both the lower and upper houses of parliament in Poland are elected for a 4-year term, and each member of the Polish parliament is guaranteed parliamentary immunity. Under current legislation, a person must be 21 years of age or over to assume the position of deputy, 30 or over to become senator, and 35 to run in a presidential election. Members of the Sejm and Senate jointly form the National Assembly of the Republic of Poland. The National Assembly, headed by the Sejm Marshal, is formed on 3 occasions: when a new president takes the oath of office, when an indictment against the president is brought to the state tribunal, and in case a president's permanent incapacity to exercise his duties due to the state of his health is declared. Administrative divisions. Poland is divided into 16 provinces or states known as voivodeships. As of 2022, the voivodeships are subdivided into 380 counties, which are further fragmented into 2,477 municipalities. Major cities normally have the status of both gmina and powiat. The provinces are largely founded on the borders of historic regions, or named for individual cities. Administrative authority at the voivodeship level is shared between a government-appointed governor, an elected regional assembly, and a voivodeship marshal, an executive elected by the assembly. Foreign relations. Poland is a middle power and is transitioning into a regional power in Europe. It has a total of 52 representatives in the European Parliament as of 2022. Warsaw serves as the headquarters for Frontex, the European Union's agency for external border security, as well as ODIHR, one of the principal institutions of the OSCE. Apart from the European Union, Poland has been a member of NATO, the United Nations, and the WTO. In recent years, Poland significantly strengthened its relations with the United States, thus becoming one of its closest allies and strategic partners in Europe. Historically, Poland maintained strong cultural and political ties to Hungary. This special relationship was recognized by the parliaments of both countries in 2007 with the joint declaration of March 23 as the Day of Polish-Hungarian Friendship. Military. The Polish armed forces are composed of 5 branches: the Land Forces, the Navy, the Air Force, the Special Forces, and the Territorial Defense Force. The military is subordinate to the Ministry of National Defense of the Republic of Poland. However, its commander-in-chief in peacetime is the President, who nominates officers, the Minister for National Defense, and the Chief of Staff. Polish military tradition is generally commemorated by the Armed Forces Day, celebrated annually on August 15. As of 2022, the Polish armed forces have a combined strength of 114,050 active soldiers, with a further 75,400 active in the Gendarmerie and Defense Force. Poland is spending 2% of its GDP on defense, equivalent to approximately US $14.5 billion in 2022, with a slated increase to US $29 billion in 2023. From 2022, Poland is set to spend €110 billion on the modernization of its armed forces, in close cooperation with American, South Korean and local Polish defense manufacturers. Also, the Polish military is set to increase its size to 250,000 enlisted and officers, and 50,000 defense force personnel. According to SIPRI, the country exported €487 million worth of arms and armaments to foreign countries in 2020. Compulsory military service for men, who previously had to serve for 9 months, was discontinued in 2008. Polish military doctrine reflects the same defensive nature as that of its NATO partners, and the country actively hosts NATO's military exercises. Since 1953, the country has been a large contributor to various United Nations peacekeeping missions, and currently maintains military presence in the Middle East, Africa, the Baltic states and southeastern Europe. Economy. As of 2023, Poland's economy and gross domestic product is the 6th largest in the European Union by nominal standards and the 5th largest by purchasing power parity. It is also one of the fastest growing within the Union and reached a developed market status in 2018. The unemployment rate published by Eurostat in 2023 amounted to 3%, which was the second lowest in the EU. As of 2023, around 62% of the employed population works in the service sector, 29% in manufacturing, and 8% in the agricultural sector. Although Poland is a member of the European single market, the country has not adopted the euro as legal tender and maintains its own currency, the Polish zloty. Poland is the regional economic leader in Central Europe, with nearly 40% of the 500 biggest companies in the region by revenues as well as a high globalization rate. The country's largest firms compose the WIG 20 and WIG 30 indexes, which is traded on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. According to reports made by the National Bank of Poland, the value of Polish foreign direct investments reached almost 300 billion at the end of 2014. The Central Statistical Office estimated that in 2014 there were 1,437 Polish corporations with interests in 3,194 foreign entities. Poland has the largest banking sector in Central Europe, with 32.3 branches per 100,000 adults. It was the only European economy to have avoided the recession of 2008. The country is the 20th largest exporter of goods and services in the world. Exports of goods and services are valued at approximately 56% of GDP, as of 2020. In 2019, Poland passed a law that would exempt workers under the age of 26 from income tax. Languages. Polish is the official and predominant spoken language in Poland, and is one of the official languages of the European Union. It is also a second language in parts of neighboring Lithuania, where it is taught in Polish minority schools. Contemporary Poland is a linguistically homogeneous nation, with 97% of respondents declaring Polish as their mother tongue. There are currently 15 minority languages in Poland, including one recognized regional language, Kashubian, which is spoken by approximately 100,000 people on a daily basis in the northern regions of Kashubia and Pomerania. Poland also recognizes secondary administrative languages or auxiliary languages in bilingual municipalities, where bilingual signs and place names are commonplace. According to the Center for Public Opinion Research, around 32% of Polish citizens declared knowledge of the English language in 2015. Religion. According to the 2021 census, 71% of all Polish citizens adhere to the Roman Catholic Church, with 7% identifying as having no religion and 21% refusing to answer. Poland is one of the most religious countries in Europe, where Roman Catholicism remains a part of national identity and Polish-born Pope John Paul II is widely revered. In 2015, 61.6% of respondents outlined that religion is of high or very high importance. However, church attendance has greatly decreased in recent years. Only 28% of Catholics attended Mass weekly in 2021, down from around half in 2000. According to the Wall Street Journal, of the more than 100 countries studied by the Pew Research Center in 2018, Poland was secularizing the fastest, as measured by the disparity between the religiosity of young people and their elders. Freedom of religion in Poland is guaranteed by the Constitution, and Poland's Concordat with the Holy See enables the teaching of religion in public schools. Historically, the Polish state maintained a high degree of religious tolerance and provided asylum for refugees fleeing religious persecution in other parts of Europe. Poland hosted Europe's largest Jewish diaspora, and the country was a center of Ashkenazi Jewish culture and traditional learning until the Holocaust. Contemporary religious minorities include Orthodox Christians, Protestants including Lutherans of the Evangelical Augsburg Church, Pentecostals in the Pentecostal Church in Poland, Adventists in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and other smaller evangelical denominations, Jehovah's Witnesses, Eastern Catholics, Moravites, Jews, Muslims, and Neopagans, some of whom are members of the native Polish Church. Pilgrimages to the Jasna Gora Monastery, a shrine dedicated to the Black Madonna, take place annually. Culture. The culture of Poland is closely connected with its intricate 1,000-year history, and forms an important constituent in the Western civilization. The Poles take great pride in their national identity, which is often associated with the colors white and red, and exuded by the expression Biało-czerwony. National symbols, chiefly the crowned white-tailed eagle, are often visible on clothing, insignia, and emblems. The architectural monuments of great importance are protected by the National Heritage Board of Poland. Over 100 of the country's most significant tangible wonders were enlisted onto the Historic Monuments Register, with further 17 being recognized by UNESCO as World Heritage Sites. There are 13 government-approved annual public holidays: New Year on January 1st, Three Kings Day on January 6th, Easter Sunday and Easter Monday, Labor Day on May 1st, Constitution Day on May 3rd, Pentecost, Corpus Christi, Feast of the Assumption on August 15th, All Saints' Day on November 1st, Independence Day on November 11th, and Christmastide on 25 and December 26th. Particular traditions and superstitious customs observed in Poland are not found elsewhere in Europe. Though Christmas Eve is not a public holiday, it remains the most memorable day of the entire year. Trees are decorated on December 24th, hay is placed under the tablecloth to resemble Jesus' manger, Christmas wafers are shared between gathered guests, and a 12-dish meatless supper is served that same evening when the first star appears. An empty plate and seat are symbolically left at the table for an unexpected guest. On occasion, carolers journey around smaller towns with a folk tour and creature until the Lent period. A widely popular donut and sweet pastry feast occurs on Fat Thursday, usually 52 days prior to Easter. Eggs for Holy Sunday are painted and placed in decorated baskets that are previously blessed by clergymen in churches on Easter Saturday. Easter Monday is celebrated with pagan dingus festivities, where the youth is engaged in water fights. Cemeteries and graves of the deceased are annually visited by family members on All Saints' Day. Tombstones are cleaned as a sign of respect and candles are lit to honor the dead on an unprecedented scale. Cuisine. The cuisine of Poland is eclectic and shares similarities with other regional cuisines. Among the staple or regional dishes are pierogi, kielbasa, bigos, breaded cutlet, cabbage rolls, borscht, soured rice soup, smoked cheese, and tomato soup. Bagels, a type of bread roll, also originated in Poland. Traditional dishes are hearty and abundant in pork, potatoes, eggs, cream, mushrooms, regional herbs, and sauce. Polish food is characteristic for its various kinds of soft dumplings, soups, cereals, and a variety of breads and open sandwiches. Salads, including cucumber salad, coleslaw, sauerkraut, carrot, and seared beets, are common. Meals conclude with a dessert such as cheesecake, poppy seed roll, or milföy cream pie. Traditional alcoholic beverages include honey mead, widespread since the 13th century, beer, wine, and vodka. The world's first written mention of vodka originates from Poland. The most popular alcoholic drinks at present are beer and wine, which took over from vodka, more popular in the years 1980 to 1998. Polish champagne is an example of a historical beer style from Poland. Tea remains common in Polish society since the 19th century, whilst coffee is drunk widely since the 18th century.